Michael for the blessing, and then we'll start. And we're going to interrupt your dinner a few times on and off with some impromptu comments from some of the grandkids particularly that wanted to say something. So, where's Mark?
Got it. Wow, what a family. I just love looking out at all of you and seeing your warm, smiling faces, knowing there's love in your hearts. When we get together, the love that we feel and our thoughts of Uncle John, behind that all, none of it would happen without the Lord. And the Lord's presence in us is the church. So when we toast to the church, we're not toasting to a building or an organization. We're really toasting to the Lord's kingdom that exists within our own hearts. So I would like to propose a toast to the church, the Lord within us. Do we want to sing a song? There's singers here. Within thy pearly portals open wide, the nations ever shall in light abide, to worship in the open word, the glory of the Lord, descending from the Lord above, thy beauty shall not cease, for in thine inmost shrine that holy dove, the sweet pure spirit of conjugal love, shall dwell forever and increase thine innocence and peace.
Okay, for those of you don't know, Mark and I had a fun little moment right after the service because he came out and that hallway upstairs, there's a picture of our grandfather, the guy that we grew up with, Carl Alden, who was in the 1920s the pastor of the Toronto Society. And so there's a lot of roots here on both sides of the family, the Aldens. I think, Lauren, I think your mom, where's Lauren? Your mom was born here, I think. Wasn't she born in... Uncle Kay was... Right. Right. So there's a lot of connections there. So I'm going to turn it over to Michael. If you could please lead us in a blessing.
Thank you. It's so wonderful. If you listen to the second or third song this afternoon that was sung by Willie Nelson and his son, and it was called Breathe. In it, he mentions that the people that are really important, that how blessed he is that he can count them on his hand, and that there are others that have one or nobody that is really important to them. And great song, father and son singing together. Great song, and great sentiment that I don't have enough hands or fingers to count the important people in my life because of this family, because of Dad, because of the connections that Dad stood for and Dad made. I'm married into the Alden family on two sides. I'm married into the Odeners that are married into the Aldens. And so I look around this room and I go, my goodness, is there anybody that doesn't have some same DNA as me? That's wonderful. And we're blessed. We are so blessed. The Lord's given us a place like this to be together, to celebrate the life of somebody who the church meant everything to my father. Ursa did, but the church means everything to her too. So what a blessing. What a blessing. So let's stop and thank the Lord for the blessings that we have in each other, the blessings we have from the Lord, the blessings of having the church. So hold them or fold them. Oh, give thanks unto the Lord, for he is good, for his mercy is forever. Amen. Praise the Lord.
Great job. We got everyone in relatively a U-shaped family style. We're excited to have you join for the meal. Shepherd's pie. There is a vegetarian option for those who...
I'm the last of the Aldens. I am the last of that generation. I just thought I might let you know that.
So one more funeral to go to and then we're free. So then the final set of instructions is you're going to come up and...
Can I have your attention? Grace wants to say something. Just kidding. Just kidding. Okay, everybody, can we just take a minute here to thank the people who put this dinner together? That would be... It means a great deal. The Army travels on its stomach, so this is awesome. And thank you so much. What a labor of love. So we're gonna do a little bit of a couple of things. People that want to say something that they thought they would be better if they said it when we were having a more of an intimate family gathering. So I'm going to turn it over to my nephew Nigel Adams.
Hello. Hey, yep, I'm going this way. Come to the middle, I guess. Hey, camera. All right, so I'm Nigel Adams. If you don't know me, I am the son of Lisa Parker Adams and Gary Turner, the guy with a guitar. And I just wanted to read a brief tribute that I wrote for Grandpa. But first, I kind of just wanted to gauge the energy of the room. And so, hey, Rip. So, on the count of 3, can I get a hey, Rip? 1, 2, 3, hey, Rip. Okay, awesome. Cool. So, as many people have alluded to, Grandpa had a historical fact for every single day of the calendar year. So, just earlier today, I was thinking, maybe I should see what happened today in history. So, if this will load. So, it's not necessarily positive news, but February 24th, 1868, U.S. President Andrew Johnson was impeached. So, I'm not going to go into the details because I don't know him, but someone might. So, first I'm just going to start with a little story that kind of alludes to how stern Grandpa was, but at the same time still hilarious. So when we were kids, Grandma and Grandpa came over for Christmas one year, and every Christmas we got new video games of some sort. I can't remember if it's the year we got an Xbox or not, but was it Xbox? Okay. So we got an Xbox that year, and we're all just playing video games as we always would on Christmas morning. And Grandpa came in the room and, was kind of annoyed at our volume level. So he said, "If you can hear it, it's too loud." And we were pretty annoyed at that at the time, but looking back, it's hilarious. So then I'm just going to read my little tribute to Grandpa. So, gratitude. I'm grateful for making it to my 30s with my grandpa still around. He was a pure gentleman with unwavering love for his wife and massive family. An immensely proud Canadian, I doubt if anyone could stump him on a historical fact or figure relating to Canadian history or even the world at large. His mind of encyclopedic capacity stayed sharp, as did his dress, for all of his 91-plus years. His repertoire of crafty terminology was expansive and entertaining enough for the family to compile a book on it. I'm toasting a barley sandwich / brown pop to you, C. John. Thank you for everything. I love you. And that's all.
Okay, now we get to have the comedian in our family. Holly has always been the joy of the party. And face that way because that's the camera.
Over here. Oh, oh, this is scary.
You got it. I'm not too far away.
Dad, sing a song.
Over there.
Dad used to say to me when I was sorry, I am Canadian. In fact, I'm the only one in my family who never left Canada. So my dad and I, our dad and I, I had the great privilege of always living near Dad and Mom, which was, when I left home at 19, I moved to Carndale and moved in with Holly and Carl, thinking this was this huge, wow, I left home before I got married, and really I just moved into Carl and Holly's house in Kitchener, Carndale. So anyways, I never, first of all, I think it's a real shame Dad's not here to see this. He would have loved every bit of this. The church part, the country music, the church music, the mom crying and holding hands with everyone. He was just such a humble, unassuming person, right to the bitter end. He literally was just always thinking about other people's comfort, other people's experience of things. So even though a lot of the last 4 or 5 years with Dad was, so it was COVID when they moved from Toronto to Guelph, which, by the way, that whole idea was Charlie's and mine, which I know I'm getting some stink eye. Yeah, but we were looking at the big picture, which is what Dad taught us. I could see that with Dad's heart condition, the way it was, and that he was a worrier. And, Gwenda and Michael were in Toronto, but we didn't know where they would go after they left Toronto. And I thought I was going to be the only one in the family living nearby. And Charlie and I couldn't picture driving deep into Toronto all the time when, little things come up. And they did. A lot of medical things came up repeatedly. And so they moved to Guelph during 2020, right after Uncle Richard died, and Uncle Wink. Uncle Wink is John Winkle. And then Aunt Rachel Morley died not long after that. She's the mother of Sarah, who made all the shepherd's pie. So these were Dad's cousins, his family members, his best friends. And so imagine their surprise. We invited Mom and Dad to come spend the weekend with us and said, hey, maybe we should start thinking about where you might need to live when you can't live independently anymore. I wish I could remember Dad's exact words. I might as well have been asking him to land an airplane in the living room. I mean, yeah, that's sweet, honey. That's really sweet. You want to take care of us. But, the church, all of it, this is our home. Dad lived in Toronto literally his entire life, in the city of Toronto, and Mom, from the age of 21, has also lived in Toronto. And this building, this society, was their extended family beyond the four walls of 17 Archer Hill. And I know there's other addresses, but, I'm just going from my age perspective here. So, and I'm rambling. Sorry, got that from Dad too. So anyways, that idea took about 3 years to take hold. I will say that the first person I ran it by in terms of siblings was Carl. And those of you who know Carl, Carl was a big thinker. He was the opposite of Dad in that sense. He wasn't afraid to take risks. Sometimes he took risks maybe he shouldn't have, but other times it paid off in a big way. And Dad came to appreciate that about him, and vice versa. You heard what Wayne read about what Carl wrote about Dad, but Carl was a huge support to me initially with this idea, because he was a possibility thinker. He's like, well, that does kind of make sense. And then when we come, we can stay at your house. And I was like, yeah, this will be great. The family's going to come, they'll come to Guelph more often, because they'll want to see Mom and Dad. But then COVID hit. And so the whole first year and a half, maybe, nobody was coming to visit Mom and Dad. I couldn't even visit them for the first 2 months they lived there. So life is what happens while we're making other plans. So it was just me for a long time, taking Dad back and forth to Kitchener, back and forth to Mississauga, Oakville, various places for pacemaker checkups and heart, Dr. Batnagar, Trillium, is that Trillium Hospital? The man who did open heart surgery on him all those years ago to give him a new heart valve for his aorta. And then cancer developed, and the stuff just kept coming. The silver lining for me was I got to spend a lot of time in the car with my dad. And driving around sort of southwestern Ontario with him, he was fun to play with, right? I was like, I'd go to make he would see a turn coming up and say, Holly, whoa, you better, the turn's is coming. I I'm like, no, Dad, we're taking the back roads today. What do you mean there's no back roads to Trillium? No, there is, I'll show you. And so it became this really fun, and it really threw him off at first, because he was not someone he wasn't spontaneous, I guess we could say. And so I couldn't even really work my Google Maps then. If you don't believe me, ask my kids. So I would kind of just loosely, I kind of go by, if you live near the Great Lakes, Lake Ontario's to the south and Lake Huron's to the west. And so I would just kind of go by the sun and, oh, darn, it's cloudy out today. What am I going to do? This sort of feels like the right way. And Dad would just be like, oh, and I'd be like, Dad, let's play Johnny Cash. What's your favorite album? And I'm going like this on the screen. And he's like, oh, you better have both hands on the wheel. And it was just a riot. It was a riot. And eventually, I think my dad came to look forward to his appointments because... he wanted to see if he'd be alive afterwards. Well, and I'll circle back to that in a minute, but... Because I ran, a couple of yellows, because to me that means gun it, not caution. So, hurry up, it's going to turn red. Okay. So anyways... part of what was really neat was the stories that would come out. Driving to Trillium in Mississauga, the back roads from Guelph, it would remind me of Papadou, actually. He would look out the window, whoa, And then he would start talking about, was it Joe Knight? I don't know, somebody he did surveying for. He did some surveying in Mississauga, or before it was Mississauga, right? That was one of his earlier jobs, and then he would, and I'd try and pull more out of him, and tell me more, Dad, and I didn't know you worked as a surveyor. Like, who knew that about John? And then he did some tree work. Wayne knows this. He worked with Dave Starkey. I think he worked for Osbond first in the U.S., and he had a couple scary experiences. As you know, it can be very risky work when you're working around hydro lines and stuff like that. So he kind of lost the nerve for that. But as Mark brought up in the service, and also I think Carl talked about it too, Dad never... he was not working at his dream job. He was overqualified in just about every way for what we would call today a dead-end job. You know, it was just a cog in the wheel. And just like you said, he was just always cheerful. He would come home from work, and, you know, sometimes we could tell if he was a little on edge, you know, because he wouldn't be talkative. But we never got yelled at. We never got, you know, I mean, okay, maybe in the earlier years. But we were just the cute little girls, right? So our experience was just waiting for Dad, for everything, for him to get done in the bathroom so we could start dinner. Like, we were late to church every Sunday my entire childhood, and it wasn't because of the kids. It was because of my dad. Every Sunday. And we would be the last people to leave the hall after everyone socialized after church. Anyways, the late Gene is a strong one in the family. I won't name names, but it does run in the family. And I'm rambling. I guess I just really, Dad was just such a role model to me, and I loved hearing the history. I actually do love history. I just have a terrible memory. When one of the times when he called out, you know, hey, kids, you remember this day, like in blah, blah, blah. I can't even remember now, just like Nigel said. I don't actually know what day it was. But for some bizarre reason, the stars lined up that day, and I called out from the other room, oh, that's when they drove the last spike. I know, right? And Dad almost fainted. Like, the look on his face, he was like, you got it right? Like, yes. So it's like, see, Dad, I was paying attention. And I guess I don't really know how to finish this except to say that Dad sometimes talked a lot, but a lot of what I learned in life was by the things he didn't say. We just knew he lived his life. I think I was telling you, Kay, he lived his life exactly the same way at the office as he did at home, as he did at church. He was exactly the person you saw. The mix of history and the Lord and his love of Mom and his children. But he also loved all of you who are sitting here. I literally can look at everybody and pretty sure Dad said hello to every one of you in some way over the years and acted interested in your answer. How are you? How are you, son? So I'm proud of my dad, and I really miss him. I'm going to keep missing him for a while, I think. It just feels all kinds of strange that he's not here with us tonight. He would have really loved every minute of it, wouldn't he? Yeah. So, that's
Good job. Okay, so now we get to hear from Aaliyah, who's got something she wants to say.
Thanks. I don't think I can measure up to that, Ollie, but hi, I'm Aaliyah, if you don't know me. I'm Nancy's oldest. I really wanted to write something, and I really struggled to find the words. So I'll just read what I wrote, and please bear with me if I get emotional. It's not going to be light and witty. So yeah, bear with me here. When I reflect on Papa's life, I feel a mix of emotions. Grief for this big loss, gratitude for the time we shared, and pride for the incredible life that he led. Papa was not just a patriarch. He was a storyteller, a mentor, a source of wisdom, as we've talked about many times tonight, and a true example of unconditional love. This is huge for me. His passing leaves a void in our lives, but his legacy endures through the lessons he taught, the love he shared, and the memories we all cherish. My siblings and I had a unique experience in that we got to live near Grandma and Papa growing up. even next door at one point, like my brother said earlier tonight. My family went through a lot when I was young, and as the oldest child, I had to experience a lot of real life before I was really ready to. One of the things that helped me through those times in my life was the fact that Grandma and Papa were such a stable presence. Papa had a presence that commanded respect, yet a gentleness that offered comfort. Comfort that I desperately needed at times. I'm not fully sure that words can really summarize just how important Papa's presence was in my life. Papa's influence on me was really powerful throughout my childhood, some of my earliest memories including him. He was the only stable male role model that I had growing up. He provided me with the stability, unconditional love, patience, wisdom, and guidance at times when I really needed it. I truly don't think I would have the same morals and values that I do today without his influence in my life. Character traits that define Papa in my mind are hard work, resilience, and a steadfast commitment to the Lord's values. He spoke of times of hardship with a resilience that inspired, of times of joy with a gratitude that humbled, and of times of change with an adaptability that impressed. When I think of Papa, I remember the joy he had when he shared his train set with his grandkids at the house on Archer Hill. Going for walks in the greenhouse, which we had to quickly pop in before the service today. His isms, learning fun historical facts about Canada or the world, but more than anything, I think of a man who taught me through his way of life the value of integrity and the importance of family. In my mind, Papa's love for Grandma was and is a powerful example of true married love. A bond forged through decades of turning to the Lord, overcoming challenges, and celebrating triumphs. He showed me that true love endures and that it requires patience, understanding, and compromise. While it's hard for me to say goodbye, I find comfort in the thought that Papa's life was well lived. He loved deeply. He laughed heartily. He embraced every moment with zest and vitality. He faced challenges with courage. He celebrated victories with humility, and he approached the end of his journey with grace. I hope that I can honor his memory by living the new church values that he embodied, by cherishing my own family the way that he cherished his, and by continuing the work that he began. Last week, I was given Aunt Syl's copy of the Word. This is pretty special to me. And her bookmark was kept in Psalm 46. She had 3 bookmarks, and 2 of them were Psalm 46. That psalm has brought me a lot of comfort this past week specifically, and I'd like to share the last bit of it as we think of Papa being reunited with so many loved ones and leaving this earth behind. Come behold the works of the Lord, who has made desolations in the earth. He makes wars cease to the end of the earth. He breaks the bow and cuts the spear in two. He burns the chariot in the fire. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Cheers to Papa.
So when I was a kid growing up, Dad, when my sisters were old enough to start dating, Dad would say, "Okay, boys, it's time to show the flag." And All right, what does that mean? Well, we have to step on some toes. And I remember when Sharon suitors would come up, Dad would say, boys, time to go step on toes. So Dad wasn't always a saint. He had rhythm to his world, and he brought a lot of humor to it. And the family, there's no joke. We have a whole book of dadisms that are nothing but his expressions that were the way that he could communicate with kids and a lot of people in an economy of words. Anyhow, so is there anybody else that would like to say something? Oh, Marley, Arlie, Bo Barley.
You guys are very sweet and full of love. And I am as well. I'm Eric Acton, son of Sharon and Malcolm. You guys have all said amazing speeches, so many things to think about. And I love my grandpa, and I really appreciate a lot of the humor being brought up, because it was really hard to say goodbye to Grandpa when I did. Obviously, it was hard for everybody to say goodbye to them. He did live a great life, and this is all proof of it. Bringing up my life, some of the best stories I have are from my dad, who is a very strong-headed man, and Grandpa is, everything that my dad believes in, but on like the opposite end of the spectrum, where he chooses his words carefully, but he sticks true to what he says. And I remember my dad telling me stories when he first met John. John pretty much crushed his hand because he was like, "Put it there, son," and had like a death grip that took my dad by surprise. My dad's a big guy. And then also apparently John slugged him once. And my dad was like, like almost like fell over. Anyway. I love that Aaliyah brought up the train under the stairs. I always remember being like, Grandpa, you have this whole basement. Why are you confined to these 3 feet of space? But he would go down there. He would put on his hat and his little, he had the little whistle. And it was the coolest thing ever. I just remember being a kid and like, okay, these are toys, but I can't play with them. And, my sisters, of course, all wish they were here. I'm sure they feel, like a hole that they won't be able to fill. And I'm happy I got to be here with my mom. And bringing up stepping on toes, my sisters have had many of questionable suitors. One of them being this metalhead guy who had long hair and a bunch of piercings in his face. And I remember the first time Grandpa met him, he's like, "Son, when you go swimming, aren't you worried you're gonna rust?" And then he started calling him Rin Tin Tim. And then another good one was Elle's still partner now showed up to Bernathen. Actually, I think we were at Mark's house. I think we were there for Aaliyah's wedding, and Mike was there, and he always wore a backwards hat. And like Grandpa came over to me and grabbed me by the shoulder, and he's like, "Son, does he ever take that off? He realizes we're inside right now, right?" Anyway, I didn't want to go on to a whole long speech, but I just wanted to voice this, make a little voice for the Actons. We love my grandpa. He was always there. He was always somebody, exactly like everybody said. He would take me places. I remember being on the subway once with him in Toronto, and it like shut down for like 20 minutes, and Grandpa's like sitting there like tugging like whatever. Yeah, he always had a map, right? He always had something in his hand, and he's like, And then the change, the 40 pounds of change in his pocket, jingling and jangling. He'd like come home. I'm like, Grandpa, aren't you worried it's going to break a hole in your pocket? Or anyway, I'm so happy I got to be here. And I'm so happy for all the people that love Grandpa. And I love you, Grandma.
This is actually the youngest granddaughter, correct?
Thank you. I was going to say that as well. I was going to say, before all the greats, there was me. So I'll start off with that. My name is Marley. I'm the youngest of the Matt family. So I didn't get as much time with Papa, unfortunately. That's partially my fault. And I'll probably regret that for the rest of my life. But touching on what Aaliyah said, he was always one of the strong men in our life. Shout out to Uncle Michael. Shout out to Uncle Wayne and Uncle Carl. Can I cuss? Grandma, can I cuss? Just one cuss word, is that okay? Papa was a good fucking man. And you know how I know that? Because when I needed somebody to save me, when I was in a spot in my life when I didn't know what I was doing, I was in a state where I didn't know anybody. I had nothing, no money, no job, 18, and Uncle Wayne and Uncle Michael and Aunt Gwenda, they brought me here with nothing but my clothes. And that's because Papa and Grandma raised them right. They raised them to be good, loving, open, non-judgmental people. And that's because of the values that you guys had, the church. And it's funny because I've never been a super religious person, and Papa never cared. He would still, is your man reading the Bible, and are you reading the Bible and making sure you're saying your prayers? And I'm like, you know what, Papa, yeah, I'll do my best. And I stick to that. I try to do my best. I try to be a good person. I'm definitely going to try harder now because I feel like I have some shoes to fill a little bit. I feel like I have to redeem myself for Papa a little bit. But yeah, a couple of memories. Definitely the fruit stickers. I actually put them everywhere I've lived, every apartment. Sorry, landlords. There is a fruit sticker collection somewhere. Friends' houses, probably I think Aunt Gwen, the house across the street definitely has, that was me. So that's a little trace of Papa. I try to leave that everywhere I go. He was sassy. He said some sassy things, and I appreciated that about him because I'm a sassy person, and he appreciated that about me, I think. When I was here in 2018 to 2019, I spent a lot of time with Grandma and Papa, and they were so open to getting to know me, accepting my piercings and my new tattoos. Every time they saw me, there was always a new one, and my bicycle wheels that Papa loved to go. And I got from my mom the bicycle wheels. They always got bigger, and Papa always got more confused. And that's okay because he still loved me, especially when I was, a little energetic kid running around and dancing and singing and always trying to get attention. And he never tried to dim my light. Neither did you, Grandma. Y'all never tried to dim my light. Y'all watered, you watered my garden, and I have always held on to my light because of that, because I had people like y'all in my life to, even though I was a little rambunctious sometimes and maybe wanted a little too much extra cheese in the mac and cheese and extra spoonfuls of sugar, and but you guys, you never, judged me for it. And you let me be the baby. I remember the little baby bottle up in the cupboard. Mom didn't know about that, but I was drinking out of that till I was about 8 years old. Yep, and I appreciated you for that because I needed to just be babied sometimes, and I appreciate you guys for doing that. I definitely remember getting pushed on the swing at Archer Hill and him saying, "Ooh-wee, it's Marley." I definitely remember that. Always will. One time, this is hilarious, but one time he was in Florida, and where I currently live. And I believe, I'm not sure if Drayton, you were with me. I think you were, but we were driving over the Island Bridge, and Mom knows, and Aaliyah knows, and anyone that's been to Bradenton knows, there's a bridge that goes up when well, it was going down, and Papa was still going forward. So we weren't sure what was about to happen, but ironically enough, Papa was really calm about it. Well, all right, kids. And, the bridge is going up. All right. All right, Swedenborg, have our back, please. God, all right. But we made it across. And that will forever be the funniest story because, I don't know. That would crack me up. Yeah, it was fun. And it was a nonchalant thing. He just kind of, it wasn't really talked about after the moment. It was yep, that happened. All right, cool. Yeah, so another thing that I remember that I'll just close off with is always playing games with you guys, Chinese checkers. I don't know any 4-year-old, 5-year-olds that are playing Chinese checkers with their grandparents. But I did a lot of that, and I loved it. I loved having tea with you guys and Chinese checkers and cucumber salads with the creamy cucumber dressing. That was a routine for me and Grandma and Papa, and it was just so much fun. And yeah, I'm just going to miss him a lot. And yeah, thank you guys for being here, and thank you guys for being you, and thank you, Grandma, for being you. I love you so much.
Thanks, Marley. So now Sister Sharon would like to say something.
Wow, so much to say. What a dad. What a dad. I would say that as time goes on, more and more, and having, been married a long time and children, I've had the opportunity to see what it's like to look at my parents' life more objectively, like I'm coming from an adult point of view, versus being a kid. And I have so much gratitude for how I was raised. I had a dad that loved me. He loved all of us, and I just am absolutely amazed at how Dad gave us all the ability to really feel like we were important, that we mattered. So things that were annoying when we were growing up, things like, if we were babysitting, whatever, Dad would mark off in the TV guide what we were allowed to watch and not allowed to watch. And if you did watch something that you knew you weren't supposed to watch, your conscience really blew up, like we know on New Year's Eve, right? Okay. But it was amazing. Dad, I felt so loved. When Mom and Dad were out, it was strict rules. The front door had to be locked. And when they got home, I would wake up and just know Dad came and checked on all of us sleeping. He loved us. He was such a good dad. And then, fast forwarding into getting married, and even though I was super young, Dad, Malcolm got the tight handshake, and he got the map to get to the gas station, which was 2 blocks away, and Malcolm was fascinated. But, he just constantly gave his message, and it was consistent of love and what it meant to honor your wife and your marriage and your family, how lucky you are to have what you have. And that has stood us really well. When I got to be home between high school and when we got married, I got to be there with my mom, and Dad called every day on his lunch break. Every single day at noon, the phone would ring, and that cheerful voice. He loved Mom dearly. Tea in bed, fresh fruit. I have a picture of Dad cutting fruit for Mom the day before he died. He said that was the last thing he could do for her. He loves you so dearly. And what a beautiful thing, right? To know that, like Wayne had us put in the program, nothing better is to know that your dad loved your mom. And that's what he gave all of us. And I have so much gratitude for that. And just last time, just every single time you called Dad, it would be like, oh, Sherry, like it was the first person he got to talk to. He was so excited, right? And he loved us all, and he loves Mom. And I'm very grateful that the teachings in the church, we had very clear visual of Carl greeting Dad and knowing where Dad's going, and Aunt Sil and Uncle Richard, and all these common denominators. And Mark, you did a beautiful job. I loved it. Thank you. Awesome, brother.
Beautiful. Thank you. Okay, this young lady came all the way from Sitka, Alaska to say something about her grandpa.
Thank you, and thanks, Aunt Nancy, for letting me let me go. I'm not much for public speaking. I'm actually quite nervous right now, so I'll try and get out the thoughts I've been trying to gather, but like how to verbalize my love for Grandpa. And I did want to do him the honor of like saying something, because I feel like, Grandpa was a very honorable man and a man of principle, so I think in principle I just need to say something. Grandpa was a really big part of my life growing up. I have a lot of memories of him. A lot of them are really just more than a specific memory. It's like a collection of like a lot of like silly moments that like my cousins and I would like giggle about together, just watching him in his way. I mean, he was just such a character. But when I think about what I remember about Grandpa, what I'll always carry with me is the way he always, and I've heard other people mention this tonight, I think my mom mentioned it, the way he gave you such presence. When he was with you, you were the only person in the whole world. Aunt Sharon said it too. When he greeted you, it was like he'd been on an island for the last 3 months and finally saw a human. Like that's the enthusiasm with which he always greeted me, no matter. And I resonated too, Marley, with what you said. I can't see you right now. I really loved what you said and just shared so vulnerably and openly. And thank you for doing that, because I also, didn't walk the straight and narrow path. It might come as a surprise to some of you. But I also resonate with like having certain pillars of strength in my life, Grandpa being one of them, certain principles that I knew about. I didn't know if I really believed in them yet or where I was at in my spiritual journey, all the time. But I had enough strong examples in my life stemming from, the legacy of Grandpa and Grandma and everything they shared and instilled in their kids, and to know what to return to. I always felt that I could return to a place of goodness and growth. Grandpa was always encouraging me in my education. He was a big believer in that, and actually he was a champion for me in education. I had to share at least that story because I was in my final year of my bachelor's degree, and I really wasn't on track to finishing on time. I had a lot of factors going on in my life. I think I was working like 4 jobs at the time. That sounds like an exaggeration, but it was the truth. I was somehow managing all these things. And he really believed in me that I could do it. And I would come over to Grandma and Grandpa sometimes, and I would complain about my workload and the stress. And they were always cheering me on that I could do it. And when I hit a road bump right near the end, and I felt I had been kind of wronged by, I'm not going to name drop a school, but I felt I had been treated kind of unfairly by some administration. And Grandpa looked up the phone number, how to get a hold of, not an email, but like the direct phone line of the dean. He needed to talk to the dean of the school. Well, I'm Elise Davidson's grandpa, and I've got something to say. I've got a bone to pick. I don't know what he said. I was just imagining, like, what, and yeah. So, I mean, he went to bat for me. I didn't ask him to do that, but it was very important to him to do that, and I always remember that. But circling back to that moment of presence that he would give you, like, just the way he would really grab your shoulders and kind of stare into your eyes where you couldn't really look away, but it got really intense sometimes. But what any of us would give to have like one more moment like that with him, just to like be held by him in that way and just feel so special. Yeah, Grandpa was an amazing man. He also set the bar just really, really high for any of the women in this room for their future partner. Sorry, guys, but not sorry, because that's how a man should treat a woman. No, he led by example in that way, and yeah, I look for an archetype of grandpa, I looked for an archetype of grandpa in my partner, and I'm so sad that my husband never got to meet grandpa, because I think they would have really got along. This is my first time home in 7 years, and not much could bring me back. Sorry, Mom. I love my whole family dearly. Watching my like very grown up little brother like walk through the door today and like nearly slayed me. And I'm sorry Grandpa didn't make it, before he left. But I think Grandpa forgives me because he knew I needed to be here right now with my mom and my grandma, and he was able to meet Cade, my son, number 28 of the grandchildren. That's the great grandchildren. I think he might have been the last one to be born. And he just said, "What a handsome fella. He sure is handsome." And I'm so glad that I got to have that moment with Grandpa before he left. But anyway, I'll stop rambling on and give the mic over to my dear Aunt Nancy. But yeah, love you, Grandpa.
Good job. Okay, can you hear me? Okay, I'm Nancy. I just want to say a couple of things. One, Dad used to say to me that I was dragged around a few sharp corners. Thank you, Holly. Thank you. I didn't realize till about 5 years ago, when my second failed marriage happened, that I didn't really realize that my dad loved me like he did. And I only want to share that never say never to people, because we learn humility in very interesting ways and over certain moments. Unfortunately, I was open to learning, and I partially got that from Dad, because when we were not able to communicate over FaceTime, Dad started writing me. And for 1.5 years, he wrote to me back and forth to work through some of our issues with each other. And at the end of that time, I knew Dad loved me. So for me, the exciting part now, I live and work in the Bronx. I work for a brick company. And for the last 2 years, every time I called, he'd say, "How's the brick lady?" And I love that I ended up being the brick lady for Dad. Because, you know, that song, you know, she's a brick house. That's me. That's me. And by the way, I'm so proud of my kids. They all spoke so beautifully. Am I wrong? I love you guys. Thank you all for coming.
So, friends, I think it's time we wind down the John Fest. But, we have a late entry at the post. You are allowed, totally, Sheila.
Yeah. Okay, I'll try my best. I did that at Aunt Sills as well. 4 years ago, this Thursday, many of you were in this same room for my dad's meal and gathering. So this is very poignant for our family, as Janet spoke about. And as was mentioned by Janet, your family stepped up in just so many ways for us. And it was shortly, 2-3 weeks earlier that Uncle Wink had died. And there was a lot going on there. And then I had, I don't want to take it too long, but there's many, 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 many amazing stories that I could share about Uncle John, being that Holly and I are a day and a half apart in age. And have had very intertwined childhoods. So last week, as I think a lot of you know, we were saying our final goodbyes to Aunt Sylvia, John's sister and my dad's sister. And here we are now saying goodbye in one way to Uncle John. And what has struck me through all of them was 3 themes, and you've heard them many times tonight. The love for the church, love for service, and love for family. And so when I was helping my mom figure out how we were going to do the service, amongst one things, I had said we need to do a dinner, and we need to have it family style. And so we got to do that last weekend also for Aunt Sil. And I was sharing the story that I was in the kitchen helping to prepare things last weekend, and I found out there was a dinner here. I didn't know. I wasn't too involved in this one. It's a little occupied. And it just warmed my heart, because just to imagine their whole family of origin getting to be together about those such important, important things to them. So thank you all.
I used to babysit Sheila and Keith.
All right. Well, thanks, Wayne. So, yeah, we had to have a few more RMPs because we had too many CJPs. No offense, Anners. We got to have the other family. So, apparently I need to say something because, first of all, this is a group. Right? Are you okay? That was something he would always say. Nobody had mentioned it yet. I know there's a lot of isms, but I wanted to share that. And apparently I look something like some of my relatives, so I felt I should also be saying something for that reason as well. Just real quick, a few quick things. A constant presence in my life, living around the corner, all the family parties. We've mentioned those, but those remains go so deep. We can all talk about going back and forth and getting lost between the houses and where did you go and all these things and stories. They're just so fun, and I really hope for my family and going forward that we can do that as well. And I can't even just talk about Uncle John without talking about Dad, because every family party, for everybody that knows, they would sit in the corner and they would natter back and forth. We don't even know what they were talking about. There was snoozes back and forth, and up and down conversations happened. And some of us got the Parker snooze, so it's a nice thing that we've all got. But it's just, we laugh about how they did that, and now it's just so fun to think of the two of them and having together, nattering together about, I don't even know what they even talked about. It was just the nattering. They got in the room, there's 2 chairs in the corner in each house. We all know what chairs they were, and they would sit and chat all night. It was just really fun. Personally, though, for me, a few quick things. One of the best times I had with Uncle John was when I was driven downtown Toronto when I was going to college, and he drove me mornings when I was heading down to Ryerson. We'd have these fun visits, like you were saying, Holly, those little visits. And I don't know if I was always awake, maybe a little hungover, but snoozing. But Uncle John always made a point to have a good conversation, straightening the car as we came and everything. But that was a really, really critical, special time for me with him. It was very special. And for myself and my wife, we've had the pleasure of seeing Uncle John, or UJ and AE, I should say, that's what we call them, many times over the last few years, and it was never an obligation. And I really think I had a great, even stronger connection with the two of you, because I can't talk to you about one without the other, especially since my dad passed away. We always wanted to see you. We always made a point, and it was so special. I think we visited 4 or 5 times last year, and you always made a time to include us in that. So thank you so much for that. In fact, I think we even shared a brown pop last summer at 11 a.m. We decided it was an okay thing to do. And somebody, I think Jan mentioned this already, but he was really good about calling about every year my dad graduated to the other world. He made a point of calling us, every single one of us siblings and mom. I just thought that was just so special that here's somebody who's 90 plus and still making such an effort to reach out to all of us. In fact, you might remember this, Ann Urs, last Canada Day, July 1st. I was going to get a coffee in the morning, and I thought, who's the most loyal Canadian that I can think of to call? And within 2 seconds, I gave a phone call and talked to Uncle John, as you can see. We had a great chat for 2 minutes, and I said, I just want you to know I could not be any prouder to be your nephew. So he's always welcomed me and Cindy with open arms, and he's made an extra effort to connect with all my kids. As everybody said, it's one of his special gifts. I feel really privileged to get to know my Uncle John so well, and I will really miss him. He's one of the most caring, reliable, and gentle men. Thank you.
Okay, now. Oh, there's the hand down there. Gwen wants to say something about Dad. Hope these are comfortable chairs, everybody.
Thank you, Wayne. Everybody here seems to be related, and I'm not a Parker, I'm not an Alden, I'm not a whatever. I just happen to be a friend of the family, and I'm incredibly blessed to be friend of the family. John and Ursa have been one of my main supports over the last, since 1973. Thank you, Carl, for bringing me to John and Ursa, for bringing John and Ursa to me. My children, every single one of them, say, you can't say JP without saying Aunt Ursa. You can't say Aunt Ursa without JP. And I feel the same way. My kids have said over and over again since I got divorced that the couple that means the most to them are JP and Ursa because they are a strong marriage. And that has meant everything to me, that my kids have something to look up to. And I have a favorite poetess, and I'm going to read a little poem. And I just want to say before that John has always been supportive and kind and scared to death of me. He always says, oh, she's so scary. And I guess I was. I didn't know I was that scary. But that's what he says. And I don't think he's been that scared in the last few years. But this poem is by an artist named, I don't even know how to pronounce her name, Yuli K. And I sent this to Ursa the other day. But I just wanted to say it again because we were taught from childhood that when you go to the other world, the one spouse is making a home for the other one when they come. So it's called Next Door. And when you miss me And when you miss me most, remember, I have only built a house next door. Oh, shoot. See, I'm not good at this, girls. Got to bring it down. You hold. Waiting until you get there, that he is a glimmer. He's right through the door. You can whisper to him at night. You can see him in the sunshine. You can see him in the sunset. He's always there. He's just next door, waiting until you get there. And I saw that poem, and that is what I felt about what JP's doing. And I love Papa. He's not my Papa, but he is my Papa.
Thanks, Gwen. Okay, so it really is time that we say goodbye, but one more story, okay? One more quick story. And I saved this for the last because this involves a bunch of people we talked about tonight. It involves my brother Carl, it involves Aunt Sil, it involves Uncle Richard, and it involves Dad. All in the same story. And Elise, you weren't the only Buster badass when you were a kid either. But I was in trouble, and Aunt Sil always, every year, would make us things at Christmas time. We all benefited from things, and she knit me a beautiful pair of mittens that I really needed, and a long stocking cap and a scarf. We were forbidden to take the long way home along the Mimico Creek and stay away from the creek because it wasn't safe, etc. But we decided that was a rule that needed to be broken on this particular day. And I threw a snowball walking along the creek, and guess what? The new glove stuck to the snowball, and into the river it went. So then I had to go in after this for the river. And I knew immediately I was in trouble. Carl said, "You are really in big trouble." He said, "I can already hear Dad on this one," because we were told not to, specifically not to do this, and we'd been in trouble for it before. So Carl goes, "Okay, here's the deal. I think you should go see Uncle Richard, because they live closer to the creek than my family did." So he said, "You swing by Uncle Richard and Aunt Jill's and talk to Uncle Richard, because he was a bit of a bad guy when he was younger too, and he'll have empathy. He'll understand, what was like. He's been there." So Carl said, "I'll go home and run fences with Dad. You go see Uncle Richard." So I went and I told Uncle Richard my story, and Uncle Richard was very grave at first, but then he got this smile and he goes, "You know what? You want me to talk to your dad?" And I said, "Well, if you think it would spare me a good spanking, a free treatment," as Mark said, or a warm-up, yes, please do. Well, Carl then told me afterwards that there was this little parlay, but I thought that was so sweet, because here's two brothers, Carl and me. Here's Aunt Sil, who started the whole thing by giving us this beautiful set of gloves. And here's my Uncle Richard, who pleaded on my behalf and spared me what would have been a certain spanking. So it's a great Parker story. Anyhow, on behalf of my mother and Gwenda and Sharon and Holly and Lisa and Nancy and all of our spouses and our kids and grandkids, from the bottom of our hearts, Mark, thank you for the beautiful service. Thank you for all the help that we've had here from Jerry and from the crew that did the filming and the recording for us. There's a lot of family that want to see it that aren't here tonight. And thank you to Erica and the crew for the kitchen, Sarah, all the helpers that we had. It was just wonderful. So this is how it works, folks. This is family. Thank you for being here.